A canine resemblance for Bill Belichick, the Patriots head coach, and Nick Caserio, the director of...
Hey, let me get a minute. Hey, let me get one too.
Hey, let me hold one.
Yeah, you get that right there. What the dog doing?
The NFL draft is in 2 days, and it is a promising time, as many teams draft franchise cornerstones.
In the 2008 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan hadn't had this.
And trash cans.
The Atlanta Falcons select Vic Beasley, defensive end, Clemson.
And before we get into it, I would like to mention that tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be live streaming on this channel. This will be the first ever live stream on this channel and will cover all the draft buzz and news. Come join me as I run through the mock drafts and tape and hop in the chat to interact and ask questions. Now, back to it. The Falcons have, unfortunately, had more success being unsuccessful. The team in recent history has failed to draft faces for the franchise. However, with a new year comes a new chance and a wide variety of possibilities. The door is open for the Falcons. I would even argue, with a good draft, the Falcons are possible Super Bowl contenders. So how do the Falcons capitalize on this window? Well, there are an infinite amount of possible ways, but in this video, I will discuss the options the Falcons have in front of them and give my opinion on what they should do. Despite the Falcons' relatively well-built roster, the team still has a lot of holes to fill. The Falcons need to fill the depth chart with edge, cornerback, defensive tackle, wide receiver, and safety talent, at the very least. The Falcons, frankly, have no edge threat, and for this reason, it is a major belief, including my belief, that the first Falcons pick will be an edge rusher. This edge class is phenomenal, with the top 3 guys in Dallas Turner, Laeta Latu, and Jared Verse being the most notable. From what I've been hearing, with these people being relatively close to the organization but not in it, the Falcons have Latu as their top edge, with Verse and Turner at the same tier. The Falcons, I believe, actually prefer Verse over Turner, but he doesn't fit the new defensive scheme as well. So it would go Latu, Verse, and Turner. I expect one of these 3 to be the Falcons' first pick, although that does not necessarily mean I expect them to go at pick 8. On day 2 of the draft, I think the first pick has to be on the defensive side as well. Whether it is a corner, safety, or defensive tackle, the Falcons need immediate help on that side of the ball. Partially, I lean corner, as I think the defensive tackle and safety class are deeper. As you can see here, the corner class really falls off a cliff, and I hope the Falcons can snatch TJ Tampa or Melton at this pick. As for the other 2 positional classes, I think the talent is stacked down the board. The defensive tackles stand out, as everyone with a red dot next to them is someone who I think has more value than their expected average draft position. My favorites of this class have to be Hall and Boyd, who are both projected day 3 picks. This class is so good that, in my opinion, the Falcons should double dip on defensive tackles. And, at safety, the Georgia boys and Hicks stand out later down the board. Put simply, on day 2, the Falcons should look toward corner, as the other positions are more stacked later in the draft, and a lockdown corner next to Terrell would be invaluable. As for the other positions, the Falcons should look to fill the holes in rounds 3 through 7, as is typical for non-immediate needs. The 3rd round would be a perfect spot for a wide receiver. There are so many impactful players scheduled to go that round. The Falcons should also look for an offensive tackle and running back to develop. The Falcons have 5 RBs on the roster, but only Algier and Bijan are guarantees to make said roster, and the Falcons should look to add a more explosive 3rd option. It is also a good time to start planning on Matthews' eventual backup, as he's getting old and drafting a high upside tackle to develop under him is a great idea. Now, with the positions themselves out of the way, I would like to address what I said before. I expect one of these 3 to be the Falcons' first pick,
although that does not necessarily mean I expect them to go at pick 8.
This is the year I expect to see the Falcons trade back. I predict it almost every year, but this is the year I'm most confident. What I am hearing from sources is that if all 3 of the edges are on the board at 8, the Falcons would trade back for a decent package, not even a great one. They wouldn't fall into the 20s. They would prefer to drop back to 7 spots or less and take the edges that remain on the board, whatever one is their top. That is a lot of things that would have to go right for them to trade back, but I think it's more an option than ever. With all this in mind, I made 3 mock drafts for the Falcons. The first is one of the trade back scenarios. The Vikings get McCarthy at 8, and the Falcons pick up an 11 and a first next year, valuing that pick more than 23, which, by the way, they should, since the Vikings could be really, really bad next year. Latu is the pick, as he is, I believe, their number 1 edge. Then everything works out as previously mentioned. 6'6" Johnny Wilson matches the current Falcons' huge receiving threats. With no good offensive tackle on the board, I went with Coleman, who could be a mauler inside, and could move to center since that has been a weak spot as of late. The rest of the draft speaks for itself, although special shout out to Jaden Hicks, who, as I mentioned, could be the top safety in this class. In Mock 2, it's similar to the first, but with some extra spice. The Falcons trade back with Vegas and get Latu, but then trade up later in the round with their picks from next year. Essentially, they get picks from Vegas, a first rounder and a second rounder next year, and swap theirs to Arizona, a first and second rounder, for Murphy. While I truly don't think Murphy will be at pick 27 on draft night, imagine instead that this is Newton, the disruptive D-tackle from Illinois, who could fall to that pick. And for the final draft, I did do a stick and pick. Not just a stick and pick at 8, but every single pick the Falcons have. Here, Turner is the pick. The scheme fit is a great player, whose only real questionables are his motor and mentality. Next is more of the same, with a look at Jonah Ellis, who could be a huge sleeper in this class. And for those of you that aren't Falcons fans, here is my first round mock draft that features all 32 teams. Feel free to pause it and look it over, but the best way to look at it will be tomorrow on the live stream here on the Peach State Sports channel at 5 p.m. So, the craziness of draft day is essentially here. There are millions of ways the Falcons could go, but I do have these strong opinions on what they should do. They need to focus defense, especially corner and edge, and then go wide receiver and running back later, filling in the gaps along the way. The Falcons have struggled as of late in the draft, but hopefully they can get back to their amazing days of great picks. This has been Joe Kopp Show for Peach State Sports. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you right here at 5 p.m. tomorrow for the live stream.